Hi folks, welcome to Money and Politics, and tonight I'm going to share with you one of my favorite stories. Before I do, remember if you want to write me, you can do moneyandpoliticsnow@gmail.com, and if you want to follow me on Twitter or send me a note there, it is right there. There's the address. I'll let you read it and copy it down. But over the years, we have different stories that stick with us, and they're good to remember. They're the kind of parables that we need in our investment career. And the one I'm going to share with you tonight, I first heard of in 1995. You know, the other day, as most of you know, I was in Chicago. And I was sitting on the rooftop looking toward the west as the sun was setting. And I was with my son, John, who was just moving out of the building where we were in a swimming pool looking at the beautiful vista. And he pointed out that this building in the middle there, that high rise, was being constructed. And over the years that he's lived in the place where he's living along Michigan Avenue, he said, you know, I remember when that was just a hole in the ground, and now it's going to be something like 80 or 88 stories. And I think there's a story here for all of us in this building and in the story I'm going to share. It's one that isn't about stock prices per se, but it's about investing. When that building started, even before it was a hole in the ground, it had to get investors before they broke ground. And you know what? The same is true when we go to the stock market, when we look at investments, when we look at something like Humble. You know, when you look at a building like this, it's a lot of complexity. A whole lot of complexity, not only in all the systems that have to go into a building so that you can take a shower on the 80th floor and still have water pressure, but you can have air conditioning, you can have heating, you can have phone lines, you have electric elevators that will take you to the top, and you have all the glass panels that have to be secured to the building even when there's a tornado, which, by the way, there was just the other night in the Chicago suburbs. When you make an enterprise, it takes time. It takes time right there that we've discussed. And you know, it takes time here. Humble is no longer in the hole like the building, laying the foundation. We are just maybe starting to reach ground level. This is an investment that's going to take time to come to fruition. And I think the problem is that I want to talk to you about tonight is that too often, I think some of our younger people who should be investing, and I applaud you for investing, but you think of investing as too much of a get-rich-quick story. It doesn't have to be where you wait until you're decrepit, where you don't have money until you're in your 80s. But you shouldn't expect to be having something like Humble making you a millionaire in a few weeks or even a handful of months. And I think that's what sometimes I trip upon that. There were some comments just recently that too bad you picked the wrong stock. Well, Humble is not the only stock I'm picking, and I've shared a couple of recently. But Humble, to remind you, is one that I think has so much potential, not because it came out as a penny stock, but because of the management, the people they've hired, and the arena that they are in. And I think that's why this could be a major investment going forward. So let me get to one of my favorite stories. And it goes back to 1995 in an article in the Washington Post by James Glassman, who is still around, by the way. We're Facebook friends, although, you know, the way it is with Facebook, I rarely see his posts anymore. But the great article was An Old Lady's Lesson: Patience Usually Pays Off. And it says, in a story too good to be true, a little old lady living alone in a rundown one-room apartment parlays her $5,000 nest egg into a $20 million fortune by playing the stock market. And then before she dies, she bequeaths it all to a university that has never heard of her. The story goes on to say that in 1944, the woman, whose name was Ann Schreiber, retired from the IRS and put her $5,000 in the stocks. In 1950, with her profits, she bought 1,000 shares of Schering Plough, a pharmaceutical company, for about $10,000. And then she just held on. Today, through stock splits, those original 1,000 shares have become 128,000 shares, worth $7.5 million. Another of her longtime holdings, Coca-Cola, increased in value from $28,000 to $720,000 in just the last 15 years. And that doesn't even include the $62,000 in dividends. Here are the lessons of Ann Schreiber's amazing success. Start early. Schreiber was 51 when she invested her $5,000, and she was 101 when she died. Her companies earned profits on their profits over and over again, and in the long run, share prices grew in tandem with corporate earnings, as they always do. That story has stuck with me over the years, and thanks to the internet, I was able to find that and share that with you. Remember, that was from 1995. So here's a woman who retired in 1944 with $5,000 that she put in the stocks. $5,000 back then might have been the equivalent of perhaps $75,000 today. But she parlayed that into a fortune. As I said, she left $20 million to a university in Israel when she died at 101. But folks, I know some of you have your children, because of Humble, that you're getting them investing, and they're maybe 15 or 13 or even 10. And that is fantastic. In 50 years or in 40 years, they can have an amazing portfolio. And frankly, folks, as we said before here, in her investing in Coca-Cola, I am not now a big fan of Coca-Cola, but she turned $28,000 into $720,000 in 15 years. So it wasn't as if she had to, that one has to wait until they get to be ancient before they can have sizable money. The other day, I was talking to another friend who I got investing. He's only 28 now, and he's learned a heck of a lot in the last year. He started investing last year during the COVID crisis. His father, still, who's been a laborer the better part of his years, not that there's anything wrong with that, but his father still thinks that investing in the market is akin to going to the horse races, that it's a waste of time and a waste of money, and that people can't get ahead. I hope this story that I shared with you tonight sends a powerful message that you can make a lot of money, and you can make a lot of money, especially if you're not making all your money just out of a paycheck. That by investing that money in good companies over time can grow to be worth a fortune. And when we grow our portfolios, just like the building, we are building an enterprise that takes time. The enterprise can be your stock portfolio. And whether you're now 10 years old or 50 years old, you can still grow profits. I want you to think, as we look at the prices of Humble from one day to the next, that it takes time to build things. Sometimes they may have started off very modestly with nothing more than a hole in the ground, and with an architectural dream of growing to something much higher. I think that's what we're looking at with Humble. I think Brian Foote is the architect. His team are the contractors. And I think in the long run, ladies and gentlemen, we're all going to be the richer for us. Leave with me a message if you like this story. I hope you did. In the meantime, stay healthy, stay safe, and we will talk to you again tomorrow night.